Hello and welcome to Sarcastic Spinster, a PC-free zone where I question the behavior of the minions of the Pussy Hat Goddess, aka the women's movement, because love her or hate her, we need to understand her. So, I want to talk about Meagan Kelly. Now, I'm just going to start out by saying that I always really liked Meagan Kelly on Fox. I thought she was really talented. I thought she was really good at playing devil's advocate with the guests that she was talking to and being able to take the opposing side no matter, so if she had a guest who was on the left, she would take the position of the right. But if she had a guest that was on the right, she would take the position of the left. She was good at being able to ask the questions and get to some meaningful information. I did not continue to watch her when she went over to NBC just because I don't watch NBC. I haven't watched NBC News in, this millennia. I think it's definitely been that long since I watched NBC News. So I didn't watch her over there. But she has been fired. Her show has been canceled because she dared to ask a question. So we'll talk about what that question is, but I just want to set that as that this is really what this is about. She asked a question. And for asking a question, she was fired. So the question was whether it is ever appropriate for someone to dress in blackface or whiteface for a Halloween costume. So she didn't say, I think you should be able to do it. She didn't say, oh, I do this all the time. She didn't condemn anybody for thinking that it's not okay. She asked the question and gave an example. If somebody wanted to dress as Diana Ross, would it be okay for them to darken their skin to, really round out the costume? And people went batshit crazy. And I've got a little problem with that. Now, what I think an appropriate, let me just say what I think the appropriate response would have been. What a well-reasoned, calm, rational response would have been. It would have been, not yet. The wounds of the past are still too raw. There are still people who remember the pain that blackface used to cause, and it is still inappropriate at this time. I hope that at some point in the future, the country reaches a point where the old wounds have healed and costumes of that sort are no longer determined to be offensive, but that day is not today. And I think everything would have been fine at that point. But that's not what they did. They condemned her for even asking the question. Now, what does that do? By condemning her and firing her and labeling her a racist, they have now labeled this woman a racist, which, if you watched my previous video, just from earlier today, there's no coming back from. There's no redemption. There's no forgiveness. The left forgives the right nothing. They forgive themselves everything, but they forgive the right nothing. And because she had been on Fox News, that was a stain that could never be washed clean. So she was automatically a hateful right-wing person because she had worked for the evil cabal that is Fox News because they dare to report a different narrative. The horror! Now, I don't think Meagan Kelly's a racist. I just don't think she is. Did she say something that was racially insensitive? Yeah, she did. Is there a big old huge freaking difference between being racially insensitive and being a racist? Hell freaking yeah. There is a huge difference. I have said some racially insensitive things in the past. And do you know how I discovered that they were racially insensitive? The person I said them to just stood there and looked at me. They didn't condemn me. They didn't scream in my face. They didn't, refuse to ever forgive me again. They just stood there and looked at me, and in just silently staring at me, made me reevaluate what I had said and see it from their perspective and realize it was insensitive. To which I immediately apologized, and then everything was fine. And why did they handle it that way? Because they knew I did not mean it maliciously. She did not mean that question maliciously. She was talking about dressing up as someone you admire, someone who happens to be of a different race. In particular, she was talking about Diana Ross, if you want to dress up as Diana Ross. Well, guess what? There was a whole freaking Designing Women episode about this. And Suzanne did end up dressing in blackface. There was a whole discussion on it. And I got to say, Designing Women actually handled it pretty well. But it was okay then. And that was years ago. But it's not okay for her to ask the question now. That's a problem. Because what are they doing? They are ensuring that the question can never be asked. That we can never, ever get to a time when skin color is just irrelevant. Now, I do want to say that when it comes to Halloween costumes, I think skin color is irrelevant. I think that you can dress up as somebody who's a different race and you don't have to change your skin color at all because the race of the person is absolutely irrelevant. I have Black nephews that I love very, very much. And I take them shopping for their Halloween costumes. And one of my little nephews has gone for Halloween as both Batman and the Flash. Neither one of which is black. So what? There wasn't any reason that it couldn't be a black Batman. And there wasn't any reason that it couldn't be a black Flash. Because quite frankly, the race of the character is irrelevant. So nobody batted an eye. Nobody thought anything about it. Nobody said you can't dress up as Batman or the Flash because they're white and you're black. Nobody. I take those boys out and around town and do stuff with them. And, they refer to me as their aunt. And, nobody bats an eye. Nobody. Now, the older of the two, we were at Incredible Pizza, which is like freaking Chuck E. Cheese on steroids for older kids. And I was staying with the younger one because the older one was, old enough and independent enough to want to be off on his own. But as he was going around the arcade looking for me, he was stopping and asking people if they had seen a little old white lady with gray hair. That's how he described me, because I got a lot of gray. I just pull it back so you can't see it. But we're getting to a point where, now I remember back in the 80s, an interracial couple was still, it was still rare, and it was still, people would look askance at it, and nobody bats a freaking eye anymore. We're going to get to a point where the tensions can heal, but they have to be allowed to heal. And we have to be allowed to talk about things and to be able to see the difference between what is just insensitive and requires a little gentle education and what is racist, what is hateful and malevolent and malicious. Because we're treating ignorance and well-intentioned but insensitive comments as malicious when they're not. And we're condemning people as malicious and malevolent and refusing to ever forgive them for something that was never malicious or malevolent in the first place. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And Bette Midler, I'm going to have to stop following her on Twitter because it's just heartbreaking to follow Bette Midler on Twitter. She came out with a response to what was going on with Meagan Kelly and about the payout she was going to get for the remainder of her contract, and said, well, it'll just be an early white Christmas for her. So had to make it racial. Had to, oh yeah, because she's now obviously a white supremacist. Of course, she must be. She asked a question about, darkening your skin. So therefore, she is obviously a white supremacist who has had all this hate deep in her heart for all of these years, and we're just discovering it now, and she must be shunned immediately. And I don't actually even think that's why she got fired. I think she got fired because they didn't want to pay her salary, because the mainstream media has gotten so bad. Because here's something I put on Twitter. And it is that the mainstream media complains and complains and complains that Trump calls them fake news. And they try all of these different tactics to try to get the president to stop them from calling them fake news. What are the two things they have yet to try that would actually work? One, give the objective facts. Two, tell the objective truth. Those are two things they will not do. Either side. Both sides are biased. You've got bias to the left, you got bias to the right, and the only place that you can actually get objective facts is alternative media. Or you're going to get biased information, but they tell you straight out what the bias is. I mean, I'm biased. I'm biased. I'm coming from a particular angle. Okay. I openly reveal that. But to come from I'm not trying to tell you I'm objective. This is how I personally see it. So I have my own biases. And there are a lot of really great, alternative media out there. And people are finding the alternative media and turning their backs on the media that is just spreading hate and lies. And so they can't afford these big, huge salaries anymore. And they're using this as an excuse to get rid of her. And it's setting a horrible precedent because it's saying that you can't ask a question. And that to even ask the question is enough to get you fired. And nobody should ever get fired for asking a question. Well, no, not for asking a question. Nope, you may have to apologize. I mean, there are questions that it would absolutely be inappropriate to ask people. You know, I think if a reporter is doing an interview with a senator and asks them their favorite sexual position, that's probably inappropriate. But even that alone, I mean, yeah, that you would have some kind of penalty for that, but it wouldn't be enough to get you fired, even if you specifically asked if they liked things a certain way. I mean, it's just she asked a question and she apologized, and it was a very heartfelt apology. And Scott Adams, who I watch, and oh, he's got, great insight into things. He's a wonderful one to watch. So he does a Periscope in the morning, Coffee with Scott Adams, which I highly recommend. And he has a rule that he applies to everybody equally, which is if you apologize within 48 hours and the apology is legitimate, that I am going to accept your apology. And I think that is a good standard to have. If you apologize within 48 hours, then I'm going to accept it. So there has to be a path to redemption. There has to be a way back, because this just dehumanization of people has got to stop. You are now labeled as a piece of shit forever has got to stop. You said one thing that is racially insensitive, and therefore you are obviously a Klan member and have burned crosses on people's lawns, and it's okay for me to hate you and say the most vile things about you because I am morally superior to you, has got to frickin' stop. If we're ever going to unify, and I don't mean we all are exactly the same way. By what I mean by unify is that we can disagree peacefully, that we can disagree about a lot of things, but we do it peacefully, and we discuss and we talk and we listen with the intent to try to understand each other's points of view. When I'm being called fucking stupid, I don't think they want to understand my point of view. When I'm being called a Nazi sheep, I don't think they're trying to understand my point of view. Which is why I try not to do that. Now, sometimes I've called people a hypocrite, but that's because they're being a hypocrite. But I mean, I guess by that logic, they're saying they're calling me a Nazi because I'm actually a Nazi. Although the hypocrisy is a little less subjective than making a broad determination about somebody you don't even know. I mean, my God, it's not like I'm walking around with a swastika tattoo. I am not a Nazi. Oh, God, even thinking about the Nazis makes my stomach turn. I don't know how anybody could. Ugh. Ugh. But anyway, so we need to be careful because we are going on a full barrel run towards censorship. And we cannot shut down the ability to ask a question. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I feel bad for Meagan Kelly. I really do. And For Halloween costumes, I don't think skin color needs to be changed, so it really shouldn't even be relevant for that because, like I said, what difference? What difference does it make? If I want to go as Diana Ross, I can go as Diana Ross, and I don't need to change my skin color to do it because everybody's going to know I'm Diana Ross. And if they don't, I'll just start singing. I went as Mae West one year for Halloween. I'm not as little as Mae West is, but that didn't stop me. So please consider a like, share, or a comment below and think about subscribing. I would really appreciate it. And until next time, #PussyHatGoddess and something to think about.